focus is on flipping ourselves upside down. We have 3 or 4 different main types of inversions that we'll be building up to in today's class, including headstand, shoulder stand, some preps for elbow stand, different things like that. Always know in this class, if there's anything that you don't feel comfortable with, or you just kind of want to do some of the preparatory versions, any of that is 100% okay, so don't push yourself further, especially since I can't be there to spot you. And there's a couple of spots, especially when we're working with the shoulder stand, where a block could be helpful if you have one. If not, I know that we're at home, so we may not have something like that. So you could either take like a stack of books so that you've got just a little bit of height, like to put under your hips and things like that. Or like you don't have to have one, you just like a bolster, a tightly rolled up blanket, kind of whatever you have, use, and then don't worry about it after that point. So, and our intention for today too is the reason why we're including inversions, why we're flipping ourselves upside down. This week I'm focusing on different chakras every day. And so today we're doing both the third eye chakra and the crown chakra. And so the big way that we can physically get into these chakras is through inverting. So sometimes I use that word inversion, and there's sometimes people that don't know that word. So an inversion is basically anytime you get your head below the level of the heart. And so there's different ways that we can do that. And even just in downward facing dog, for instance, that's an inversion because our head is below the heart. Lots and lots of benefits to inverting. It helps our cardio system. It helps our respiratory, it helps our digestion to be able to have a moment to be flipped upside down. So all sorts of benefits all around. And so and including into the chakras, getting that extra flow of oxygen and blood to the head. And so just like for my normal classes, we're gonna start off laying all the way down. So just make your way comfortably onto your mat. Allow your body to really deeply relax. So enjoying several huge, deep breath cycles in and out of the body. While we're physically inverting today, imagine that we're flipping our world upside down in other ways as well. So perhaps there's things that have been frustrating to you lately, such as maybe being stuck at home and not able to do your normal routine. Maybe your finances have been flipped upside down. So whatever it is that is about your world that feels upside down right now, this inversion gives us a chance to flip things back around. Or if there's things that have always seemed wrong about life, maybe we imagine keeping that focus just in the back of our mind through class. And so we're helping to flip that around as well. So maybe these are ideas like how violent and war-like the world is sometimes. Maybe we're flipping that upside down so we can have a greater amount of peace and serenity in our life. So whatever that intention is for you, bring that to the mind and for the back of the mind. And then we're going to begin some of our physical stuff. We'll start off bringing the knees into the chest and do a few little circles with the back. And so these could be fast circles, they could be slow circles. Sometimes I just want to hug my knees into the chest and feel that. Other days I want to move all around. So whatever it is that's feeling the very best for you today, that's the pose that we're taking on. Okay. And then taking on just a very gentle inversion to get us started. If you do have your block or that stack of books, plant your feet down for a moment, grab your block, and then lift up your hips so that this can be slid right under the hips, under that sacrum, the flat part. And as soon as you have that block under the hips, and you choose the height, by the way, it can be very small, it can be very tall. Once you've got that set up solidly, begin to bring your knees in toward the chest. And the legs start to float up to the sky. So this is one of the most gentle restorative versions of a shoulder stand, because we don't actually have to hold our weight against gravity. We're just letting the weight float for a moment. So enjoy several huge deep breaths in and out. And already feel that any tension in our feet start to drain back out. Some of us have been going on extra walks, extra hikes, different things like that out in nature with all this free time. So perhaps our feet have been a little bit swollen lately. Some mornings I'll even roll my ankles out a little bit and I'll suddenly notice, oh wow, I've got some tension going on there that I didn't even know about. So keeping our breath slow and steady, let's take 5 more huge cycles here. When you finish that 5th cycle, bend the knees so that you can plant the feet back down. Lift the hips up, removing the block. And from there, let's take a few more bridge poses. So feet are planted. Inhale, roll the vertebrae up one at a time until we're in this nice flat line from knees to shoulders. And exhale, roll back down one vertebrae at a time. Keep that going a few breath cycles. Inhales to rise all the way up. Exhales to roll back down. And note, when we're up at the highest spot, we don't let the knees splay open. Rather, we're keeping that gentle contraction inward. That's one of the stabilizing features we're going to start building up with our inversions, especially when we get to the headstand prep, where we have to have the stability of the shoulders. We have to have the good alignment. We're not letting things just splay open. And so let's go 3 more bridge poses. 3. 2. And with this last one, stay just a little bit longer. When you're up at the top, if you can clasp your hands behind your back, take that clasp. Even walking the shoulders under a little bit, lifting hips super, super high. If you can dome slightly upward, take that shape. One more huge breath in. And exhale, release the hands, roll all the way down onto your back. And let's work our way toward a seated place. So grabbing behind the backs of the thighs, let's roll like a ball 3 or 4 times, giving a nice massage to the spine. It's nice to help warm up the body as well, having to make the core work just a little bit for balance. Okay, the next time we're up, we're going to stay and we'll come into a cobbler pose. We're going to take a few nice stretches for our legs so our legs can start getting a bit more flexible, a little bit more warmed up. So taking a cobbler's pose, bottoms of the feet touch, the knees go as wide as they can. If your hips pull you backward, I want you to just plant your hands behind your back and just straighten the spine up tall, staying right there. If you're able to stay tall without hands or anything at all, grab onto your ankles, lift the spine up, and tilt forward, keeping the spine as long as it can for as far as you can, tilting forward. When you can't go any further, then just relax the muscles, letting gravity have a chance to take over. enough that you can open out your right leg. And then from here, everybody will start to tilt forward through the center again. Now this one, there is a chance that your right hip could want to lift up as you go forward. Don't let that happen. Only go as far forward as you can keep the hips very grounded. So that deep inner thigh stretch going on. As we start to gently walk back up, bring that right leg through to the center so that you can then forward fold over that right leg. It gets a very different muscle group through the hamstrings. So once again, walk your way forward, enjoying this chance to get deep into hamstrings. Walking the hands back in, bottoms of the feet come together, left leg goes wide, and then we walk our hands through to the center, nice and long forward. Walking back upward, the left leg goes through to the center. Let the spine start off nice and straight and tall before you start to walk forward. Again, once you get to that farthest spot, then you can relax the spine again. Beautiful. Walking back up, let's take one more cobbler pose here. See if the legs feel a little bit more open than they were for that first one. Either hands behind you or posture tall. Start to tilt forward and ultimately find a nice release. Pressing into our hands to rise back up, pick up the knees, swing them under your body. We're coming to a kneeling place. So from kneeling, we're on hands and knees. Let's take a few cat-cows, helping to warm up the spine. So huge exhales when we round the vertebrae upward. When the belly goes down, we gaze up and inhale. So let's take a few of those, so about 5 more cycles. Continue to follow your breath. That's the most important thing we can connect with in yoga. One more round of breath. Exhale. Inhale. And then spine goes back to neutral. We take puppy pose, so we need to leave our hips right over the knees. Let our hands start to walk forward until the elbows can drop down. For puppy pose, some people can rest the forehead down and some people can flip the chin, and that would make the heart able to drop even further down. And so enjoy that nice arch to the spine, continuing to warm up the vertebrae. Also just a very gentle type of an inversion, letting the heart be just slightly elevated from the head. One more huge inhale. And then exhale. Start to come up to the hands, walk the hands backwards so hips can go over the feet. And we take a nice child pose. This is nice after that puppy pose because now the spine is rounding upward rather than heart downward. It gives a nice balance to the spine. If you want to stay for a few more breaths, that's fine. Whenever you're ready for a downward facing dog, let's find ourselves planting the hands, tucking the toes, lifting the hips up super high. Remember, down dog is not so much about just kind of getting up onto hands and feet. It's about lifting the hips to the highest place they've ever been. Even if we start off with the knees bent, little by little over time, the legs can work towards straight. But that's not necessarily the goal. The goal is more of a straight line from wrists all the way up to hips. So find that lift, pedaling out legs if this is helpful. This is still the place where we're still warming up in our bodies. So be patient, be kind. Some of us might want 2 or 3 more breaths here. Whenever you feel ready to come up toward the top of your mat in a forward fold, begin to make your way there. Maybe just walking up for this first one. Letting your legs continue to be long. A slight bend if you need to get the torso hanging forward. And then just gentle lengthening. You don't need to go all the way straight quite yet, but just be patient with the body. This is another inversion, letting the head just hang heavy below the level of the heart. Let's take 3 more slow, deep breaths from this placement. On the 4th inhale, we'll circle our arms through the sides, rise up, a slight arch backward, helping to wake up the spine, and hands down to the heart. Beautiful. We'll begin warming up our body. Inhale, circle the arms clear up to the sky. A nice exhale, forward fold. Step just the right foot back. And from here, keep the right hand on the ground, left hand twist up to the sky, warming up the spine in a whole different way. When the left hand comes down, we drop onto the back knee, and then 3 times we'll pulse back and forth. When we go forward, we are pushing the hips forward so we feel the stretch on the front of the right hip. And when we go backward, that left leg goes straight and we bow the heart down. So nice and slow like that 2 more times. Going forward, hips travel forward. And front leg straight, bow down. Forward. And straight leg. Beautiful. When we go forward this time, plant the hands all the way flat, lift up the back knee, and step this left foot all the way up into 3-legged dog, lifting that leg super high up to the sky. Try to come forward into that left foot still floating in a plank position, and we lower down into chaturanga. So the shoulders go forward of wrists, squeeze the elbows into lower, and then dropping both toes down, a nice back bend, maybe all the way up to cobra, maybe not quite that far yet. Tucking the toes, lift the hips up to the sky, downward facing dog. Little pedaling out through the legs. From here, right foot slides forward in between the hands. Left hand stays down, right hand twists up to the sky. When this hand comes down, drop onto that left knee, and then those 3 gentle cycles. First we go forward, stretching through the front of the left hip, and then when the hips go backward, that front leg goes straight, and we bow our heart a little closer to the thigh. So 2 more like that, going forward, and hamstring stretch. 1 more, forward and backward. Walk the hands up to the top of the mat, plant them firmly, lift up the back knee, and then this right leg floats clear up to the sky, 3-legged downward facing dog. As you shift forward into plank, that right leg is still hovering. Try to take chaturanga from here. Shift the shoulders forward of wrists, squeeze the elbows until slowly lower. Both feet plant, and cobra, a nice back bend. Tuck the toes, lift the hips, downward facing dog. Now with the hamstrings much more open, we're prepared to play with dolphin pose, so drop down to the knees, drop down to the elbows. Now with this first one, we'll set up the shape really solidly. So for dolphin pose, we take both of our hands over to the elbows. If our hands can wrap around the elbows, that means we're in a good strong shape. The elbows are not too wide. From there, releasing the elbows, leave the elbows exactly as they are. One hand makes a fist, the other hand hugs around the fist. And then leaving the elbows down, we rise up kind of like the downward dog. The hips are lifting up high, the knees are lifted off the ground. And then the last thing we do to get into dolphin pose is start walking the toes closer to the elbows as much as you have the flexibility for. We're gonna breathe and hold until you can't hold any longer. And then you're gonna rest down in child pose. So take a few good, steady, strong breaths. Feel the shoulders warming up. And if you haven't dropped down already, feel free to drop down to the knees. Take a moment with child pose, extending the arms nice and long. We always take a nice break after the inversions to make sure that we're reset with a nice, good, strong, steady blood pressure. Planting the hands, tuck the toes, lift the hips, rising up to downward facing dog. Gazing forward, slightly bend the knees. Step walk or jump all the way to the top of the mat. Take 3 good breaths in a forward fold. With the next huge inhale, circle arms up to the sky, maybe an arch, and hands down to the heart. So as we're continuing to play around with more and more inversions, My invitation for you is to try playing around with gazing. Gaze around at you and imagine, what if this was my view of the world upside down like this? What if trees grew out of the sky, and what if my feet wanted to float up in the sky direction? It's a very different perspective. I don't know if you've ever done a headstand out like on the top of a mountain, but it's very different perspective to look at the world like that, where the earth is on your head and your legs are floating up in the sky. So imagine that you're starting to flip things around for you in your mind, in your body, and in your emotions already. So from here, I want us to clasp our hands together and then cup your hands around the back side of the head. From here, in this shape, this is starting to prepare our shoulders and our body to get closer and closer to the headstand. And so I want us 5 times to arch the heart forward, opening the elbows as wide as they can go. And then with the exhale, start rounding the elbows, trying to get the elbows to touch as the spine rounds backward. So 4 more of those. Inhale and exhale. 3, 2, 1. Good. As we release, inhale, circle the arms clear up to the sky. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, half lift, long spine. Exhale, plant the hands down, step walk or jump into a plank. Lowering chaturanga, shift your weight forward, squeeze the elbows into lower. A nice back bend. Tucking the toes, lifting the hips, downward facing dog. Float the right leg clear up to the sky. And step the right foot forward and through in between the hands. Back heel rotates down. The arms begin to float up to the sky. Take the hands behind the back of the head again and take 3 more cycles. Inhale, elbows back. Exhale, elbows round forward. Feel the spine round. 2, 1. Release the hands from behind the head, clasp them behind the back, keeping that front knee nice and bent. Start to pull the arms into a shoulder stretch behind you. You're getting the right shoulder close to the right knee as the arm stretch all this distance behind you. Now, if you continue to shift your shoulders just a little bit further to the left, you may be able to drop the torso lower, turning even this into a gentle inversion. Drop both hands to the inside of the front foot. Straighten both legs, turning all the toes to the long edge of the mat. And walk the fingers forward while the hips shift backward. It's almost like a downward facing dog in that length that we have of the torso forward. But the hips shifting back helps to keep us in balance. Straightening through the legs, we're helping them stretch even longer. And then walk the hands up to the top of the mat. Step the front foot back, and let's take a flow. So shift the weight forward of the fingers, squeeze the elbows into lower. A nice back bend. Tuck the toes, lift the hips, downward facing dog. And left leg floats clear up to the sky. Left foot steps in between hands, back heel down. Arms float up to the sky. Clasp the hands behind the back of the head. 3 breaths. Inhale, elbows back. Exhale, rounding them forward. 2. And 1. Good. Release from the head, clasp behind your back. Bowing forward, left shoulder gets close to left knee. The arms get pulled into that nice shoulder stretch. Or if you shift just a little bit further to the right, adding a teeny aspect of inverting here. both legs, toes to the long edge of the mat. This time, let's walk our fingers under and through so that we can try to lengthen our way deeper and deeper into the hamstrings. One more huge inhale. A good exhale. And then start to walk your hands up to the top of the mat. Let's take another little flow. Step the front foot back. Lower chaturanga. Inhale, back bend. And a nice downward facing dog. From here, dropping down onto knees, we're going to play with another round of our elbow stand. This time I'm going to give you 3 options. You can play with whichever option is working best for your body today. So we take the same setup, we're down on knees, drop down onto elbows, test it to make sure the elbows are at that distance where you can circle the hands around. And then out in front, one hand makes a fist, the other hand hugs around the fist. Tuck the toes, lift the hips, and then walk the toes in as much as you have the flexibility for. The head is not touching down for this one. So this is version 1 if you stay like this. Version 2 is if you begin to lift one leg up to the sky and set it down. Second leg and set it down. And version 3 is if you swing that leg up with a little momentum so the other foot lifts as well. Exhale, lift, and inhale, lower. So again, take that about as many times as you have the breath. Or as soon as you start to lose the breath, just take a nice child pose. And so we'll try to go just a little bit longer. Keep the breath going. And if you haven't dropped down to child by now, feel free to take a rest. Come all the way down and let your breath flow into your body. Purposely trying to slow down the breath after all that motion, all that activation. Let's take 3 more slow breaths, as slow as you can make it. Okay, after that 3rd breath, we'll rise up to just this nice kneeling spot where we can start talking about the headstand a little bit. Some of us, that's easily within our practice, and if so, you're welcome to come up into it. For others of us, we just want to practice some preparatory steps, and so that's what we're going to work on, especially right now. My first recommendation, if you have rings, I recommend taking them off. If you have a hard floor, I recommend doing this with a blanket, so that way the crown of your head isn't getting too much pressure in it. So with the hand position that we take with our headstand is the hands clasped together, kind of like we had that behind the back of our head earlier. And we don't want to crush our little pinky finger. So whichever pinky finger is on the very bottom, bring it right level with the other pinky finger. So then this is brought behind the back of the head, and the elbows go back to that shape that we've been playing with for that elbow stand. So it's not super wide. We want it to be squeezed much tighter in so they're about level with the shoulders. So this is what creates a good triangle base shape. the placement of our head, the way that I find which spot of the crown of my head to set down, I take the base of my palm and I put that base of the palm right into my eyebrows, and then I roll the rest of my hand up, and wherever my middle finger falls up to the crown of the head, I push extra hard into that spot so that my hair and my headline remembers that spot, because that's where we're going to be finding the ground. So let's try just with that shape onto the ground. So clasp your hands, the pinky finger gets brought slightly forward, cup the hands around the back side of the head, and then that spot that we were pushing into the crown of the head, bring that directly into the earth. Make sure the elbows are squeezing more in than you think they should. And so from here, kind of let your head rest into the cupped hands. So if your hands ended up too far back, bring them right back down so it's kind of cupping your head right where it touches on the ground. And then from here, let's try playing with almost like that dolphin pose that you've been doing before. Tuck the toes, lift the hips, and try to just walk your feet backwards until you're bringing your hips pretty much over your body. And for some of us, this is where we're going to practice just a few more breaths. Some people know the full headstand, and you're welcome to come up to one version of it right now. Take 3 more breaths wherever you're at. And then gently lowering down into a child pose. I always like to take a child pose after any variation of a headstand because it helps me feel that immediate relief of the pressure that was on the vertebrae of my neck. And so just let yourself rest, taking a few good breaths. Okay, rising up. Now for some of us, that was enough neck pressure and you can just skip this next one or go back to the elbow stand practice that we were doing just a moment ago, just holding or kicking up, whichever version of the elbow stand worked for you. There might be some of us who want to practice getting a little bit closer to the headstand today. And so this little trick that I'm going to show right now is the way that I ultimately got up to my full headstand when I the very first time I did it myself without having to use the wall or anything. And so what I did is I scooted myself back to a wall. So see if you can find a wall, and you're facing your head away from the wall, so you're not looking at it. And then from here, in that kneeling position, we take that same headstand shape. So we clasp the hands, the pinky finger is brought in front. When we set the head down, we wrap our hands right up to that base of the head, and where the hands can scoop right under on the floor to help protect the head. Elbows are squeezed in. Tuck the toes, lift the hips, and then begin to walk your way up a wall until you feel your hips over your shoulders. If you're not feeling hips over shoulders, you'll want to get a little bit closer to the wall. You might be slightly too far. And from here, play with one foot floating up to the sky, and then the other. And if your balance is there today, maybe you bring the foot that's rising up slightly past your centered spot until you can feel your other foot just floating away from the wall with balance. If that's the case, maybe you can bring both legs up, or maybe you just come back to the wall. So let's give ourselves a few more breaths just to play with whichever variation we've got. Keep your shoulders pressing away from the ears. That's so, so important. We're not collapsing down. Rather, we're feeling that gentle strength through the shoulders. So if you're still up, start to make your way back down. Let's immediately go into our child's pose again. Feeling the neck recover, feeling the body recover, beautiful strength. Okay, starting to rise up from here. Now, sometimes after I do a headstand, because I had to hold so much with my shoulders, I start feeling that space in between my shoulder blades get a little bit tighter. So we're gonna take a rabbit pose here. And the awesome thing is rabbit pose is also an inversion, so it goes perfectly with our theme for today. So with rabbit pose, we bring our knees close together, kind of like a child pose. We set the forehead down onto the ground. And when the forehead is set down, we wrap our arms around, grabbing onto our heels. From there, all we have to do is lift the hips up, and this naturally rocks us back onto that same spot on the crown of the head. And you round the spine so that you get that really good shoulder spot stretch right in between shoulder blades. So if you haven't gotten there already, set the head down, grab the heels, lift the hips up, and really push the spot in between shoulder blades forward. This is less about any pressure on the neck, more about that really good shoulder stretch. And gently release, extend the arms forward, take another little moment with child pose. Okay, starting to rise up. We've got a few last poses I'd like us to take before we wrap up in our Shavasana today. And so the next one we'll be playing with is a shoulder stand. There might be some here that don't want to do a shoulder stand, so you've got a couple of options. Grab that block again, place it under your hips and float the legs up to the sky just like we did at the beginning of class. Or you can even just bring your hips right up to the wall and swing your legs up the wall and stay there for the time that we're doing the shoulder stand. So those are perfectly fine variations to play with if you're not wanting to do the full shoulder stand. Now, the way that most people I know get into shoulder stand is through rolling. And so what you would do for that variation is you roll like a ball, just like we did earlier. And the moment when your hips are higher than your shoulders, you bring your hands right up to the low back, and then you start to squeeze your elbows in, walking them closer to each other behind you, and then the legs start to straighten all the way up to the sky. So see if you can find that shape. Again, if you're having troubles, just set up a block or bring your legs up a wall. Now, when we're in shoulder stand, we do not want to look left and right because our cervical spine has a lot of pressure right now. And so if you're confused at all for the next couple of moments, come out rather than trying to look at me. And so feel yourself trying to straighten yourself upward like a candlestick. From whatever vantage point you do have, keep your eyes open and imagine looking at the world. Imagine if this was what your world was like. If your feet had to walk in the clouds, and if your head and your neck and shoulders were all on the earth. Now, the beautiful thing about these two inversions, that headstand and this shoulder stand, these are the king and queen of all the yoga poses. They also feed those upper chakras, the third eye and the crown chakra, lots of energy. So from here, leave your right leg exactly where it is upward. Keep your left leg straight and just see how far down you can drop that left leg toward your face. Sometimes people can touch the ground, sometimes not. Don't stress about it too much. The biggest thing is keeping that left leg straight. And keep on gazing upward toward that right foot. Keeping our vantage set very solidly. Slowly start to lift the left leg up and let the right leg stay straight as it drops down. This time we're gazing upward toward the left foot. Both legs come up together. We can either stay with a few extra breaths in shoulder stand, or we can take a moment playing with plow. Both legs stay together, both legs stay straight, and we test the water, seeing how close to the ground they can go. If you don't actually touch the ground, keep your hands on that low back the whole time for support. If you do find your toes touching the ground, maybe the hands clasp behind your back, and you squeeze the shoulders together to get that extra stretch going on. Take one more huge breath in and out. And from here, everybody takes hands open onto the floor, pressing into the ground like brakes. And as slowly as possible, we try to return our hips back down to the earth. As soon as the hips touch down, bend the knees, bring the hands to the knees, and start to roll around on that low back. If you've been on the wall, feel free to come off the wall. And if you have that block, start to work your way down off of the block. Legs begin to lengthen long onto the ground. And we've got one last pose, a fish pose here. And so bring your hands palm face down, and then scoot your hands under the glutes. So you'll need to lift up one glute as you slide that hand under, and then rock onto the other side so that you can slide both hands under glutes. Once you've got your hands very grounded and your elbows stuck to the ground like this, start to lift your torso and your shoulders up. So you've got hands and elbows on the ground, everything else is lifted at the arms. Heart rises up like an arch. Keep that heart lifted, and you're welcome to either stay here or rocking the head backwards. Lower the very, very tip of the crown of the head back to the earth. Keep the arch shape. If you lose that arch to the heart, you've lost the pose. Last gentle, gentle inversion where the head is above where the heart is above the head. Take one more deep breath in. And then with our exhale, bring the head, the chin up toward the chest. Start to widen the elbows and gently roll your way onto your back as you free out the hands. As soon as you're back down here on your back, scan through your body. If there's any last poses or stretches you need to be comfortable for your Shavasana, take a moment to do any of those last things now. So maybe a happy baby pose, maybe one last little twist to each side. Just make sure your body is very comfortable. And then whenever you feel like your body is ready to just be on the ground, comfortable, relaxed, and open, then you'll find yourself in your Shavasana pose today. Always know you can plant the feet and knock the knees inward if the low back is having troubles. Otherwise, just find this nice supine position. And as you're here, let the breath flow in and out. The third eye chakra is our vision. It's our intuition. And the crown chakra is our connection to oneness. This is the idea. These are the principles I believe we need more of in our life at this crazy period of time. But letting ourselves flip upside down gives ourselves that chance to feed those very beautiful, very subtle energies. Keep the breath flowing in and out. Just focusing on the breath for these next few minutes. Begin to deepen the inhales and the exhales. Introduce little movements back to fingers and toes, ankles and wrists. Stretching out like we're waking up first thing in the morning. Eventually rolling over to a nice fetal position on one side, stacking one hip on top of the other. And let's take 3 more breaths before we rise up to a comfortable seated place. As we rise all the way up, we join our hands together in front of our hearts. Take a huge breath into your body, feeling how your energy is at this moment. Making sure our necks are comfortable Take a moment to drop the right ear over the right shoulder. Gently and slowly roll the chin all the way down to the chest. Roll the left ear over the left shoulder. And chin gently back down to the chest. And then very gently, as the head rises back up to neutral, we think of our intention for today. What was it today that we were hoping to flip upside down in the world or in our energy? What is it that does not seem right, that just needs to be inverted? And imagine that through our practice today, we helped to shift some of that energy, even just a little bit of it, toward a slightly more healthy and peaceful variation of the world. Imagine that we've helped our intuition grow and that we've helped ourselves feel a greater connection of oneness. And so with all of these themes to lead us in toward the rest of this beautiful day today, let's wrap up our practice together, this wonderful time we got to share. And we're wrapping it up with the sound of Om. Let's inhale together now. Om. May we be filled with light and happiness and peace. Namaste.